Hello, 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 and welcome to today's episode of Her Version. This podcast is dedicated to sharing stories of struggle to triumph, a platform that allows individuals to tell their truth in order to inspire and uplift others. For those of you that are new to this podcast, make sure you like content like this. If you like content like this, make sure you follow, like, and share. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria. Let's jump right in. Thank you for joining us today for this episode of Her Version. The Her Version platform is built on storytelling and the understanding that many times our greatest learning experiences come from listening to other people's stories. Today, I'm speaking with an amazing woman named Illeana. Illeana is here today to tell a journey of compassion, comparison, and disconnected power. Her journey has led her all over the world through studies of spirituality, metaphysics, unseen realms, and new age ideas. We will be touching on religion, disempowering beliefs, and her love for transforming lives. I am so excited for this podcast. Hello, lady. How are you? What's the number one lesson you've learned out of your life?
Yeah, so that I need to trust in my inner guidance, and that sometimes I make decisions that don't appear logical and rational because I operate from a very different place. And so lots of synchronicities happen in my life that kind of guide me in a particular way. And learning to listen to that for me has been very important, as opposed to always operating from my ego, which is very hard driving and very strong. I have a very strong and powerful ego. So I've had to work with it and kind of put it a little bit aside so that I can allow that inner guidance to come through.
Do you think we all have a strong ego?
I think some of us have stronger ego than others, especially those of us who are driven, who have things that they want to accomplish, who are very action oriented, who are like you. You know, it's that driving force. So the ego is essential to our life here, and it helps us accomplish things on this 3D existence level. But it shouldn't be in the driver's seat. So the ego is actually, if you read Carl Jung, who is like my favorite psychologist, he talks about the ego being the master, which is the mistake that we make, because the ego should be the servant of the soul, because the soul is the one that has the purpose and the strength and the knowledge and the connection with divinity at all times. And if we operate from that place with the ego helping us, then we create a very different paradigm in our lives. So that's how I try to operate.
Oh, I love that. Okay, wait. So the ego should be the servant of the soul.
The soul, yeah. The soul is that divine, spiritual, energetic part of us that's always connected to source, divine. And it always has that link. So we have to be open enough to listen to its guidance as opposed to always being in the grip of the ego. So the ego is always pushing. It wants this. It pushes for this. It's always comparing. It's always criticizing. It's always judging. And it's making our lives actually very difficult. But
wow.
if you allow spirit to guide a little bit, and if you listen to the synchronicities and you allow those things to flow in your life, you find that things happen differently. That's just been my experience, of course.
Yes. Now, what is a different word besides servant? Do we have to use the word servant? I don't appreciate that word.
Assistant?
Assistant or assist.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if the ego is in a role not of guiding, this is the thing, not leading, but assisting, right?
Okay.
And as we all know from the corporate world, the assistant is extremely important to the leader. They can't really operate without the assistant. It's a symbiosis.
Yeah.
But it should be very clear that it's the soul that's doing the guiding and not the ego.
Could soul also be like heart-centered?
Yes. So exactly. Exactly. And that's where you listen to your inner guidance. It comes through your heart. And of course, your heart is about love, right? So approaching the world from that place, as opposed to approaching it from the ego place, which is always like, who's going to hurt me? Who's going to upset me? And has very thin skin, right? Is always taking offense, is always like on the lookout for things. That is actually a very stifling way to live and very minimalizing way to live.
Very interesting. I'm
At least
almost
in my opinion.
picturing, I'm almost picturing like the ego being, like, to say an illustration that's coming to mind from what you're saying is ideal. I'm almost picturing the ego being like a shadow.
So our shadows do live in the ego, and that's why inner work is so important, because you
Wait,
do shadow
what?
work. So don't forget the ego is a mental construct. It doesn't have physical existence that you can go, oh, there it is. It's part of who we are, but it is a part that's very stuck in our shadows and in our issues and in our unresolved traumas.
Oh
So
my
learning
gosh.
to work with that, and the inner child work is also really important. So the mothering we didn't get when we were children. We often didn't get proper mothering and nurturing because our own mothers had their own issues and their own traumas that were not resolved. So they gave what they had to give and what they could. But inner child work means that we learn how to reparent ourselves in a much more loving and appropriate and compassionate, self-compassionate way. Because one of the things that happens is we're not self-compassionate. We're constantly beating up on ourselves, especially as women, when we don't live up to what we think we should be. And again, this is what we teach in our women's course, that this is a very disempowering way to live. Beating yourself up, self-criticizing, putting yourself down, that's just not love. And the soul comes from love, from your heart. It's a very different paradigm in how you view things in your life.
Definitely. Yeah, I agree with all that. That is so interesting. I am very sitting in my ego right now for putting shadow and ego together. Just low key having a little celebration right now. So listen, we have 72 people hanging out with us right now live. I want to thank everyone who is chilling with us, um, and listening to this awesome story and guidance and some little nuggets of information that you're feeding us right now. I would love for you to tell us a little bit about what you do, your business, your website, where people can follow you if they're resonating with what you are saying. Where can we find you? What do you do?
So, so on my website, I have a blog section, and I actually write about a lot of these things that we're talking about. I have a blog post on who are you listening to, your ego or spirit, and this is the conversation you and I were having. But what I'm most excited about right now is that my business partner and I have created these unique and transformational courses for women. So we help them actually through all of these things that we were talking about. They're presented at the corporate level. Right now, we're working with businesses because we've noticed that a lot of women in the workforce are feeling very unsure about themselves. They don't know how to set boundaries. They're not communicated in an empowered way, and they need some guidance as to make that happen. So this is what we're doing at this moment. We're working with European and North American or progressive organizations who see the need for that. And I'm so super excited to tell you that ever since we started to do this, the response has been tremendous. And we're noticing this for women at the millennial age and also older. So it seems to really span the gamut because of the conditioning, the programming you and I were talking about. So many of us have been conditioned that we're not good enough, that we should be quiet, that we need to always be giving to others and not taking care of ourselves because that's selfish. And instead of following our own path and our own intuition and authenticity, we do what others expect us to do. And we feel bad and guilty and terrible if we do what our soul wants us to do. So we're working with women to help them develop the self-confidence and really starting to live in a very empowered kind of way. So that's what I'm really super excited about at the moment, because we're waking them up. This is about wakening up to what you can become.
Yeah, definitely. So is all of that on your website? How do people find you?
Yes, so that's my website, and I have a page, phoenixontherise.com/EWN, and that's where the
Yeah,
description of my
that's in
courses
the
are.
description.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
the website she just gave is in the description. So you can either go here to her, just her website, or in the description. What's in the description? It's more of in the,
It should be a link to the page I'm talking about.
okay,
Yeah.
beautiful. I love that. And then if they want to follow you on social media, is all of that on there?
Yeah, and I also have, as I said, a women's group on Facebook, which you belong to. So it's over 600 women, and it's called Women's Spirituality, Wisdom, and Empowerment Hub. And we talk a lot about these non-religious spiritual beliefs and practices. And we also talk about women's empowerment and how we can work with these ideas to make our lives better and to really change the world, because the Dalai Lama said that the world will be saved by the Western woman. So I don't know exactly what he meant, but I'd like to begin to see that happen.
Absolutely, definitely. What's your take on success? What does success mean to you?
So, because I'm a very unusual person,
I love it.
success means that I get to travel the world and to affect positively as many people as possible. That's what really makes me happy. And I know that when I do that, everything flows out of that. Fulfillment, contentment, financial security, everything comes out of doing that kind of work. And the travel piece is huge for me because I have a nomadic soul. So I just love to move around and try different things and live in different places. And this is why my network is so large, because I've lived in lots of different places. I make friends easily. And so, I kind of collect people wherever I go.
Yes.
Which is so much fun. And so that's what spells success for me. So it's not so much about the outer things that you amass. It's more about having the freedom to travel and also to be able to do this kind of thing. To talk about these beautiful things, to see people awaken to their true self and become empowered and live from a very different perspective. That's, to me, is success.
That's awesome. What would you say to somebody who is struggling right now with um, connecting with their authentic self?
Yeah, so that's a tough one, and it's got again to do with the programming, right? Because when you're in the grip of the programming, you don't even know who you are. You're just operating on automatic pilot.
Yeah.
So I would say again, starting to become aware of what it is that you're doing and how you're reacting, and definitely the journaling part is really important. So normally people who are not sure what their authentic self is feel this void. They feel emptiness inside. They feel like something's missing, even if they might be, outwardly very successful and they might have money and prestige and cars and houses and whatever else are the images of that. There's something inside that's missing. So if that is the case, then I would certainly begin with the journaling piece and start to look around at how other people live, other people who don't live conventional lives. We're so programmed to live conventional lives, to follow everybody, to live in a certain way. But there are lots of people who don't live in that way. And sometimes they have a door that opens. Read something that maybe challenges you and that you find just super interesting, but is not mainstream. Start to explore different things. There's Gaia.com. Gaia.com has all of these non-spiritual videos that you, non-religious spiritual videos you can watch on every kind of subject that we have discussed.
How do
So
you spell that, Gaia?
GAIA.com.
Beautiful.
So they talk about everything in there that is non-mainstream. So that's the alternate to Netflix. It's a spiritual Netflix.
I love it. Wow, I've never even heard of that. I feel like I've seen that name before. Is that like a
I'm sure you
female
have.
name?
They advertise on Facebook.
Really? That's where I've seen it?
Probably. Yeah, they do advertise quite
No
a bit.
kidding.
But it's super interesting. It's super interesting. So I think they offer a week for free. You can check it
Okay.
out.
No kidding.
Just to open up, to something else, to some other
Yes.
possibilities.
Yes.
Because you don't know until you start to explore. And it's a process. It's not like tomorrow you're going to go, oh, well, now I know what to do. Allow yourself that. And perhaps, allow yourself to explore a different kind of modality like hypnotherapy, past life regression. There are lots of things that are available right now in the world that were not before, and they are very well known.
Yeah.
Lots of people have done them. So there's nothing really frightening about it.
Yeah. I agree. Well, this has been fantastic.
Yes, it's been lots of fun.
I so appreciate you coming on and hanging out with us and sharing so much awesome information. I feel like I could just keep digging
Yeah.
into some of that. This has been great. For those of you that are watching live, we so appreciate you being here and hanging out with us. If you're watching on the replay and you made it this far, make sure you hashtag replay so that we can say hello to you and we know where you are, what platform you're watching us on, and we can show you some love. Do you have any closing thoughts before we wrap it up?
So I would say that, especially for women, to find out your power, dig deep, do whatever research you need to do, get a coach, do some therapy, whatever you need to do, and to be your authentic self, to live from a place that makes you happy. Your light is needed in the world. Your talents or gifts are necessary, and they add to the diversity and the beauty of the world that we live in, and they're essential. Like the way you've done it. I mean, you are like a shining example of that, Sabrina, the way you have come from your own struggles, and what you're doing right now is just so amazing. I've told you, I'm in total awe of you. So you're like the example that it can be done, and it's never too late. It's absolutely never too late to start on the journey. That would be my advice, to live from that place. And the only way to live from a place of empowerment is really find out how to fill that void that you may have.
Exactly. Great advice. I love it. Well, thank you so much for hanging out. This has been fantastic. I certainly hope that we can have you on again in the future.
For sure.
I am going to go ahead and close out. Thank you so much for all of you that were joining us here at the Her Version podcast. This community is expanding every single day and is filled with females who are striving to do better than they did yesterday. For those of you that are new to this podcast and like content like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And as always, follow, like, and share. If you have an amazing story to share of struggle to triumph, be sure to reach out to me here or at heraversion.life. I am Sabrina Victoria. I am the host of this awesome podcast. And I love it because I am able to allow people to share their truth and inspire others. As always,